Well, it's finally time to dig into this pile of lumber. You know, I thought we were going to use poplar today, but I realized I'm probably just going to use the pine. It doesn't matter, it's okay, and I really do have some stuff to dial in anyway. The poplar's just not wide enough for what I want to do today. I just think we're going with pine, and that's cool. Heck, these are some sweet pine boards. Rough sawn, genuine 1-inch by 12-inch. Although I think these turned out being a little more like 11 3/4 inch, but still pretty good. Like I'd mentioned in another video, to get a shelf board right now, which is a 3/4 inch by 11.5 inch at Lowe's, is $60, and I can get these big boards for $9 and plane them myself. So today I'm going to build this little shelf, little side table thing for the couch. I just want to give it a try. I kind of had this idea in my head and thought it'd be cool. So why not? I'm kind of going to get some rough dimensions here and see what I can come up with. Nice book and magazine tray in the bottom, nice little junk tray in the top, and get rid of this thing. This little side table sticks out so far into the room in this narrow pathway. I hate it. Just hate it. Don't want it there. So I'm going to take some measurements and kind of come up with something that's more the size I'd like it to be. Now, none of these dimensions are set in stone. I know a lot of people are going to say you should really have a fantastic plan, but my plan is to dial in some of these tools that I just got in that big tool haul that I showed in my last video. Now, something I forgot to show in that last video was this generator. I picked this up for $300 from a guy. He used it for less than 40 hours. I really need electricity in this shop bad, and this thing puts out enough juice to run the air compressor and the shop table saw and the shop vac. And it can also run a thickness planer without tripping its breaker. So to me, that's a win. Now, you know I just got this saw you saw in the last video. Fantastic saw. About a $2,000 package, and I picked it up for about $300. But I need to be able to hook it up to this shop vac and collect the dust. So I ordered that little PowerTech cone. I'll leave a link in the description to what that is if you have a 4-inch tool you need to collect dust off of. Pretty nice option, came with the sleeve, and it was pretty cheap. Got a little dirt there from the forks at the lumber mill, and I don't want to run that through the thickness planer and destroy the blades, so I'm going to hit it with a wire brush and clean it off a little. Much better. Now, I need to cut some of these off in sections. I think I'm going to end up with some 24-inch pieces and some 22-inch pieces. And I need a guide. I don't have a track saw. I'd like the cuts to be pretty accurate instead of just freehanding them. Although I'm very good at freehanding with a circular saw. I've done so many thousands of cuts that I can get a pretty darn laser line. But I'm going to make a little guide today just to play around with it and see how it works on this Makita saw. And if I like it, I'll make a better one in the future. Pretty nice. Gonna work pretty good. Although clamping it down, the motor of the saw tends to almost rub those clamps, so I'll make a better one sometime. I have a box of old laminate flooring around here, and I'm going to make a bunch of tracks for the different saws that I have. You know, it's the old thing about using your tools to make more tools for your tools. But anyway, for now, this little guy's going to work for the handful of cuts I need to make today. And there it is. Nice, straight cut. No worries. Do the same. Get that mud off of there, gosh darn it. There we go. Now, it's easy once you've made that first cut to accidentally put this on the wrong side, but that would have been stupid. Keep in mind, you want to take material out of the side that is not your workpiece. The blade should never run on the side of the line that your workpiece is, or you're going to come up 1/8 of an inch short. So, flip that around and make a couple cuts. Now, I'm not going to have to show you all the cuts. I didn't want to waste your time there. But now I'm going to punch out some thickness here, a couple of widths of the boards. These will be the top, bottom, and the sides. Now I'm going with, I don't know, what was it, 7.5 inches? Just something wide enough for my typical notebook or my Bible or my iPad or whatever I typically use at that table. So that's what I'm going with. And I'll make a couple modifications as we go through, because like I said, there's no real hard set plans. We're just having fun with some tools and some wood. Here it comes, the DeWalt thickness planer. Very exciting. You know, the great thing about this thickness planer is after the investment, if I go to the lumber mill, it's so affordable for me to buy good, big, quality lumber, and it's cheap, and I can make it furniture grade, and, you know, however furniture grade pine can get. But I can make it very usable, cheap, and it's going to be straighter than anything I buy at the store. I just love this thing. Ultimate tool. Absolute dream. Now for the top piece, I'm going to corner round the entire top and the bottom of the top. For the platform part, I'm just going to do the top and leave the bottom edge square that hits the floor. And then the two uprights, I'm only going to round out the front edges because the other ends need to be square where they're going to connect underneath the top and on top of the base. So I just kind of want to dry fit everything here and make sure it's looking like I want, make sure widths and thicknesses are right. Everything looked pretty good here. I think I maybe ended up shaving a little bit of that pencil edge off, but maybe not. I don't know. Either way, get to the point here where I want to start marking out where the uprights are going to go. And, you know, something I learned a long time ago was tape measures are great for framing and other things, but sometimes you need a little bit more of a precision measurement. And so what you do is you burn that first inch. Like you can see, I'm starting all my measurements at that inch. Now, if you're doing this, remember to translate it, but there's play in the end of a tape measure for butting up to or hooking on the end of things you're cutting, and that's great. But from tape measure to tape measure, it can be inconsistent. So if you're using a tape, I always like burning the inch, especially for little things like 3/4 and 7/8 inch. There's not a lot of room for tolerance. Well, I finally get to whip out this pocket hole jig. I bought this over a year ago for another project and ended up not using it because I went with a different fastener option. But today I decided I'm going to use pocket holes. I'm not going to use biscuits. I'm not going to use dowels, but I also don't want to see screws coming through the top of the workpiece and having to pin that with, you know, like some little plugs or something. So we're going to use the pocket hole jig. And I really, really like this pocket hole jig. It's a very nice tool. It came with everything, including the bit and the stop collar. It clamps nicely. It has a little vacuum port on the front that I'm looking forward to using in the future because heaven knows I clog this thing up a lot. But I really liked this little pocket hole jig. And, you know, it worked great. Now, of course, I'm going to test the length of my fasteners now that I have those pocket holes in there and make sure I'm not going to penetrate my workpiece, but I'm still getting enough grab on it. And that should be just fine. So, out with the clamps. And I got these little Relitech corners. Now, I'd like to have some bigger ones for making furniture and stuff, but I do have these little ones, and they were pretty cheap on Amazon, and I'll link them. I'll link every little tool I'm using in here in my description, just so you can see where they are. But these were really cheap, and it's a nice way to get a true corner if you want to clamp some stuff up. So they're great for smaller projects. I was kind of pushing their limit, I think, with these. Maybe not, I don't know. But these were the big ones, and they worked fine. They worked great for me to be able to get a nice clamp there and get a solid right angle instead of guessing and getting the screw in there crooked and, you know, just having to deal with that later. Well, now I can see what we're working with here. Finally get it unclamped, and not too bad. Looking good. This is upside down. That is the top connected to the uprights. And now what I'm going to do to make sure I get equal placement is slide that base right up against the top and transfer those lines from the top to the bottom to make sure I've got my widths correct, and I should get nice 90s. It should be perfectly vertical. Now get ready to watch me make a mistake, and I could hide this like so many people do on YouTube, but I decided to leave it in. What I'm doing here is marking a line for where I need to drill holes. I'm going to put screws up through the bottom of the piece to secure this. No need for pocket holes showing inside the bottom of this piece from where we can see it. I'd rather just hide the screws from underneath, and that's fine. Now I love this straight drill hole block. This is a great tool. I'll link this in the Amazon as well. But this drill block is awesome because, you know, you want to use a hand drill and you don't have a drill press, or you don't want to use a drill press, and you just don't get the holes quite straight and you're sitting there trying to eyeball it. This takes all the guesswork out. It gives you a dead straight hole every time. But a dead straight hole doesn't really matter if you're drilling the holes in the wrong place. And like you can see, I'm drilling on the outside line and not the inside line. And I'm really bummed out about that. But I don't know I'm doing it yet. I'm busy talking to my son and I'm distracted. And this is something I'll tell you. Slow down. Measure twice. Mark where you're going to drill your holes. Don't just have a couple of lines there and think you know. Take the time to mark stuff out. It's a lesson that I've learned a million times. So she's all clamped up again, and I drilled new holes, as you can see. The old ones ought to hide just under the edge of that upright, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Especially because they'll be down in that book and magazine tray thing I'm going to build at the bottom. Get all those clamps off and see what we're working with. You know, I'm enjoying this so far. I mean, we're just making it up as we go. We kind of sketched it, we kind of got dimensions, but we're just playing around. And it's fun. It's fun to play around and see something tangible instead of just having ideas in your head and thinking about building something. Sometimes just go out and build it. Maybe you don't even need it. But it's good for you to play if you're an adult and not just always video games and things like that. Do something creative. Do something with your hands, and you'd be amazed what you can make just out of your brain. I like that. The top's nice and pillowed, looking good. The uprights are looking good. And now I'm going to figure out how tall do I really want that side tray. I think I end up going with about 9 inches, and that ended up working really well for this 24-inch tall shelf. Also to accommodate the tray, because, you know, missed a lot of good cut footage here because the battery died, and it's fine. You didn't miss anything. Just trust me, the boards got cut. See? There they are. I'm going to go ahead and run them through here and square up the edges. And I'm noticing that this blade is out of square. Now, if you watched my tool haul video, you'll find that I bought this $2,000 saw setup for $300 from a guy that never really set this saw up correctly. And one of the things I'm running into is he used it, and I think that the worm drive in here that adjusts the gear is a little sticky. And so I always end up adjusting this to the perfect angle, and then I run it, and then it's off by like a 1/4 of a degree, maybe even up to 3/4 of a degree. So next time I get in there and clean the inside of it out, I'm going to have to open up the side panel next to the motor and try to grease or oil that worm drive. And that ought to settle things. The lock works fine. It's just something's walking around weird in there, and it needs a little maintenance because it was probably never set up or oiled properly in the first place. Anyway, here we are cutting off those 9-inch side panels, and actually the cutoff portion is going to be exactly the right dimension for those sides of the tray. So that's cool. I'm excited about that. And, you know, we're just playing around here, and that's fine, but we got to be careful. So I ordered this safety bundle for the table saw, and I'll link this in the description too, because actually the price was pretty good for all 3 of these together. I was going to buy individuals, but this pack ended up being pretty useful. And I want to show you something here. I've used push sticks all my life, but this push stick is awesome because of the hold down power, and it keeps your hand out of the way of the blade. Like, see how firm it holds that down. When you use a push stick, you're not always immune to kickback. Just look how much the blade could lift this. I mean, effortlessly your piece can lift because the back of the blade is rotating up out of the table. Whereas with this, it's got a rubber grip, it's got something pushing on the back, it's got your hand out of the way, and it really holds that piece down and gives you control. I like that a lot. And I actually loved this featherboard too, because the other thing is keeping the workpiece stable against the fence. And to be able to quickly adjust this, I liked it. The combination of the featherboard and this are awesome. And it also had a hold down and push through pad, which I look forward to using in some bigger projects. Either way, I'm going to link that in the video. No, this isn't sponsored. No, I'm not advertising for anybody. I just looked through a lot of options and found that this was the one I really liked, and it really added a good level of safety to working on this table saw. Now all I'm doing is cleaning down some of that rough sawn stuff on the edges here that was left over and trying to square up these work pieces. Now right about here I have some decisions to make. Like I said, we're making it up as we go. There's no right way. We're not really thinking of any mistakes we could make. We're just playing, right? So what I've decided is I'm going to cut grooves in this, and then I'm going to use my thickness planer to plane something else down very thin, like 1/4 of an inch, and insert that into the grooves to make my upper tray for this thing. You'll see it once I assemble it here, but what I'm going to do is lower this blade down, and I'm going to constantly be moving the fence and the featherboard side to side to cut about 1/4 inch groove using multiple passes with the circular saw. Of course, first I'm checking the depth of the saw to make sure I like that groove, and we're just going to start setting up to push through and cut. So the fence is set, now the featherboard's set. Now I can go ahead and run both of these pieces through and make my first pass of multiple passes. But, you know, I decided to go ahead and clean these pieces up first because they're pretty rough, and I thought it'd be nice to get them through the thickness planer before cutting that groove. So why not? And one thing I'll tell you about this thickness planer is, boy, it leaves a lot of wood chips. I really should have been using that bag that I showed in the tool haul video, but I didn't. I thought it'd be fun to show you this pile of chips that just come out of doing a couple of these little boards and reducing the thickness. When you think about it, you're removing a ton of material, sometimes half the board. So there's going to be a lot of wood chips. And if you see that little yellow collar on the back there, that's something I purchased on Amazon because it will hook up to a standard shop vac hose. But what you need to know about these thickness planers is that the ejection fan on the back of this blows twice as hard as your shop vac can suck, which means if you hook a shop vac to it, you're actually restricting the airflow and you're going to damage the tool and cause it to clog up. So use the hose to redirect it to a bag, or actually get yourself what's called a dust collector, which can even look like a shop vac, but it moves at least twice as much air capacity. Shop vac's not going to work for these big planers. Well, now let's get to cutting that groove. Like I said, constant moving of the fence and a constant moving of the featherboard to make sure that we're getting nice, clean, safe passes. Really like this push stick. I've had push sticks from Rockler, I've built push sticks, but man, to just get something out of the box, I love that push stick. And there it is, fitting right in there like a tray. I thinned that piece down real thin on that thickness planer. I'm just going to clean out the groove with the chisels here. You know, over the decades, I have acquired a lot of chisels. I have one tool bag just full of chisels. And you can resharpen them and all that, and that's fine, but I've definitely acquired different levels of chisels, and there's a few I keep very sharp and nice, and they don't get used for anything stupid. And I suggest you do the same. Well, now I'm trying to figure out this side tray, and I had that thin panel like you saw. I've got the grooves cut like you saw, and I want to figure out how thick's that interior panel going to be. Probably stick about 1/4 inch into each side there. Make sure it won't fall out. So that's going to work. Again, I'm really loving this push stick. With a panel like this, I'd have typically just pushed it through with my hands. No big deal. But this reaches out so much further than my fingers could and holds things down. I'm really digging it. I can't praise it enough. So there's how the drawer's going to go together, is what I'm thinking. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little more than 1/4 inch, more like 3/8 jutting in there. And I think originally I was thinking about putting screws and dowels through the side, but I still don't want to see the screws. I'd rather, if I have to see something, see a pocket hole inside that tray. Also, when I figure out how I want to finish this, I may just fill those pocket holes and bury the screws with wood filler. I don't really care. But I don't want to see any dowels and screws through the side, so I won't. Now, even in these tiny trays, it's pretty great to use these pocket holes. Of course, I'm going to square up these sides here and make sure they're right and make sure the reveal's good. And this one ought to go in super easy. But the second one is where I got a little worried because I thought, boy, that's thin. I wonder if I'll be able to get the drill in there. But you forget how steep the angle of the pocket hole is. It's so sharp. I mean, I could probably have gotten into a space a couple inches tighter than this. Very nice. Nice big tray. In fact, by the time it's put together, I was shocked how much it holds. So pretty nice. It does better than that old table I had, and it's taking up a thinner profile, so that's cool. Now it's just time to drill those pocket holes into this thing. And you know, I should have drilled them before I glued the tray together. I wasn't thinking about it. We're just playing. We're just doing it as we go along. If I had to rebuild it, there's about 10 things I'd do differently if I had to make a couple of these. But I got out the old flex shaft and took it nice and slow and was able to get those pocket holes in there. I'd probably like to use different joinery for this, but whatever. Now, get ready for a mistake. I bet you can already guess what it is. I just wasn't thinking. I was running through and goofing around, and here it comes. I should have rounded these over before I ever cut the pocket holes in them. But the guide bearing for that round over bit slipped into the pocket hole, and now it has trimmed that profile. So, stupid mistake. What are you going to do? You know, that's the thing about making stuff as you go and building like this is you're always trying to solve problems about 5 things in advance. You know, like, for example, I'm thinking about, do I want to plane the wood or run it through the table first? Or do I want to run part of it through the table saw, then plane it, then run it through the table saw? I think I'll just hand sand some of this right here. No big deal. I need to hand sand anyway. That way I won't dig in. What are you going to do? But I know I'm definitely not going to use the trim router anymore because I think I'm all done with it. And I don't want to put another weird hole in stuff. It's so embarrassing. Anyway, like I was saying, maybe you want to put something through the table saw. Maybe you want to put it through the planer. Maybe you want to drill the holes. There's a lot of things to consider even when you're goofing around. What order do I do these things in? What am I going to want to do with another tool after this step? And how will what I'm doing with this tool affect that step? There's a lot to think about, and when you're goofing around with no plan, you're bound to make mistakes. And that's totally fine because you also learn by making mistakes. Even after all the years I've worked with wood and stuff, I haven't built a lot of furniture at all. And I'm having fun and learning some things and playing with tools I don't get to play a lot with now. So, like anything else, don't get discouraged. Give it a try. Make some mistakes. That's how you learn. And you can always fix them. Wood is so forgiving unless you're doing some crazy, expensive, exotic wood that's going to be stain grade. Man, I don't know what I'm doing with this thing. I'll probably end up painting it. Probably not immediately. But I'm going to give it a final sand down here, and I'm going to try to get that drawer in. You can see the mistake back there on the drawer, and it is what it is. I can always hit it with some filler. But what I'm going to just do is put it in now because it's going to be up against a couch, and nobody's really going to see it. And then you know, we'll see what happens. But for now, I just want to get it put together. No big deal. Now I'm pretty happy with how tightly this is fitting together in here. You know, maybe you would have said don't put the bottom on, put these parts in first, but like, it's fine by me. We're just playing around. I know I'll get it in there. I could have probably bumped it a little with a mallet or something, but it got in there. And I like bumping stuff with the palm of my hands a little better because you get a more precision bump, and that's fine. So now I'm trying to figure out about how tall does this need to be for me to comfortably reach in there and grab things? How tall does it need to be for the things I'm going to put in there to get in there? And I figured the old cell phone's a good test. Also, maybe the thickness of the cell phone. Anything else, you know, my pocket knife, my wallet, my reading glasses, things like that that might end up in this top shelf. Are they going to fit in at all dimensions? And the answer is yes. In fact, I'll make it just a little bit bigger. But now I need to find a spacer. And you know, I found just about the perfect spacer for this gap was just a good old 2x4. 3.5 inches, wide enough to get your fist in there, not too bad. So what I'll do is take some 2x4s, just some scrap, and clamp them up in here and start using them as spacers so that I can then go ahead and fasten this tray in with some more pocket screws. Now, even all after that, there's still just a little twisting here and there, and that's bound to happen. It's wood. It's humid outside. The tension changes just as I'm working on it. So I'm going to space it out with another chunk of 2x4 in the back and put that guy together. And by golly, this thing's fully assembled. And it's not looking too bad. In fact, it looks a little better than what I was imagining in my head. And I'm happy to have it done. Now, of course, I want to get the dust off of it, and I could hook up the air compressor, but really what I think I'm going to do is tap it out and hit it with some tack cloth and some microfiber cloth and just get that layer of dust off of there that's stuck all over it from sanding and anything that's still floating around from the table saw or just rubbing up against other work pieces. Not too bad. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know if it's going to match the style of couch I have in the house right now, but honestly, those couches were cheap, and we're probably going to end up replacing those at some point once I finish recovering from this surgery. Look at that. Yeah, not quite great with the couch, but not bad either. Just something new to get used to. It's actually much larger, but it is also at a better height. Very nice working height for the side of the couch. And look how slim that is, not eating into that walking area anymore. I may have to make another one of these for the armchair. And I was pretty shocked at how much it can hold book-wise. I used to only be able to get 5 or 6 books in that other one that took up so much space, and this thing holds a ton of stuff. So that's pretty cool. I really am happy with this. I hope you guys had fun watching. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video or in the comments section. God bless.